All right, so today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to dive deep into just 3 verses from the Bhagavad Gita. And believe me, these 3 verses, they tell an incredible story about leadership, about anxiety, and about perception, all seen through the eyes of a king, right on the edge of one of the biggest battles you can imagine.
Okay, so this one sentence right here, this is the key that unlocks everything we're about to talk about. It tells us we're not just looking at a battlefield with an objective eye. No, we're seeing this entire scene through the eyes of a king who is absolutely terrified. And, that changes everything. So let's really set the scene. Picture this. King Duryodhana is standing there with his teacher, looking out over the enemy army. But what he's seeing, it isn't reality. It's reality warped by a funhouse mirror of his own anxiety. His fear is literally making the enemy look bigger and stronger than they actually are.
So what does he do? How does all that anxiety actually come out? Well, he starts to talk. And what he does is he just starts listing, one by one, all the heavy-hitting warriors he sees lined up against him. It's almost like a verbal checklist of his own fears. And you have to pay attention to where he starts. This is so telling. He doesn't start with a simple head count. Nope. He immediately starts comparing the enemy commanders to the 2 people he fears the most in the entire world. His cousins, Bhim and Arjun. For him, they are the gold standard of what a terrifying warrior looks like. Now just think about what that does to his mindset. In his very first breath, he's already pointed out 3 different warriors, Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupad. And in his mind, they are all just as dangerous as his 2 greatest enemies. Right off the bat, the threat hasn't just doubled, it's more than doubled.
And oh, he is not done yet, not by a long shot. This is just the very beginning of his fear-fueled roll call, and as this list gets longer, you can just feel the sense of dread building.
So, the list keeps on rolling. He goes down the line, naming names. Drishtaketu, Chekitan, the king of Kashi, Pershujit, Kunti Bhoj, Shaibya. You can almost hear the panic rising in his voice with each name. To him, these aren't just commanders, they are all legendary heroes, and each one is another reason for him to be terrified.
He finally gets to the end of his list, but the pressure is just immense. He points out the courageous Yudamanyu, the gallant Uttamaja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. And the text tells us that every single one of these men is considered a great warrior chief. In his mind, the enemy's leadership roster is just impossibly stacked.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. The text doesn't just call them chiefs or commanders. It uses one very specific, incredibly powerful word to describe every single person that Duryodhana just named. A word that basically puts a number on his fear.
So what is this word, what does it mean, and how does it give us such a clear window into just how huge Duryodhana's fear really is? The word is Maharathi. And the definition? Well, it's just staggering. A Maharathi is a warrior chief who can, all by himself, fight against 10,000 regular warriors. I'll say that again. 10,000.
Yeah, just let that number sink in. 10,000. That is the kind of power that Duryodhana is mentally assigning to every single one of the commanders he just listed. This isn't just an army he's facing. In his mind, it is an assembly of demigods. And this brings us to the real aha moment of these verses. Because this impressive list, this talk of all these Maharathis, it's not what you think it is. There's a much deeper reason he's doing this. So here's the twist. This entire speech he's giving to his teacher, it wasn't some calm, strategic breakdown of the enemy's forces. The commentary makes it crystal clear. This was a list driven entirely by his own personal, spiraling fear of a looming catastrophe. He's not analyzing the enemy, he's just listing his nightmares out loud. And this quote right here, it just lays it all bare. He was completely blindsided. He totally underestimated his opponents and never thought they could pull together a force like this. So now, seeing them all lined up, his panic is causing him to wildly overestimate their strength, turning every commander into this unbeatable, legendary force.
So you might be asking, why are we focusing so much on this one little anxious speech? Well, because it's so much more than just a list of names in an old story. It's a perfect, compact, psychological portrait.
This is the big takeaway here. What we're getting isn't just a who's who on the battlefield. No, we're getting a front row seat, a direct window into the mind of a leader whose own anxiety is already shaping the reality of the war. Before a single arrow has been fired, his fear is already a major player on the field.
And that really leaves us with this final, powerful question that echoes all the way from that ancient battlefield to our world today.
It's not just about Duryodhana. It's about any leader in any high-stakes situation. How does a leader's own inner fear shape the reality of the battle before it even begins?